Let's talk about that fallout though, that led to you guys going to work for Vince. Of course, we're just getting started with the whole Midnight Express angle, but I know that the WWF has really done a number on Jim Crockett Promotions, counter programming their pay-per-views and things like that. So Arn and I have talked a lot on the show about how there were just some financial things that were promised that weren't actually delivered, and you guys had enough and said, "Okay, that's it." And I think you went and met with Vince McMahon. What can you tell me about your frustration with Jim Crockett Promotions that ultimately said, "Okay, this is the straw that broke the camel's back. We should see if we can get another deal here."
Well, I mean, basically that was it. The thing that we were being used and abused. Wrestling fans are still watching, but I mean, we're having to give in every match, as Arn's already talked about, and they're negotiating for Turner to buy the company, and they're giving contracts out and guaranteed contracts and stuff like that, and they left out Arn and I, and which was pretty much of a tactical error. And so we had the opportunity to go and fly up privately and meet with Vince. And, we went to his house and we didn't talk dollars. I don't think we did. I don't remember it if we did. But that we would get a push or whatever, and that we could do whatever. And then, we were being interviewed as key employees with the Turner people. And in my bluntness, the guy was asking me questions and they told me to tell the truth. So I did. And I made a few comments about some of the markets that we were losing ratings in. And I said, this is why we're losing ratings. And Crockett called me on the phone and told me that I wasn't loyal. And so they kicked me off the airplane.
Was that Jim or David who made the call?
Oh, Jim.
Okay.
And we were in Houston, Texas. And they were passing out next week's who's on the plane and who's booking sheet. And I looked at it and my name wasn't on the plane list. And I think I snapped. Arn would be a much better person to tell because he was right there watching. And I think I don't know if I had a temper tantrum or whatever. I just said, okay, I'm done. I quit. Do you want the belts tonight or tomorrow night in Philadelphia? And I was done. And I didn't expect Arn to come with me, but I was done.
So to recap, you felt that you'd been booked unfairly, that they were taking advantage of you, and you're putting everybody over every night. Maybe you'd been slighted on a payoff. We've detailed that on Arn's show in the past. And now with seemingly there's a life vest coming for the Crockett's. They're passing out guaranteed contracts to other teams and other managers, and you guys don't get that opportunity. So you feel slighted again. And then you're kicked off the plane, and that's enough. You had enough.
I didn't need to be spanked.
Right. And I think Arn tells the story that when you guys come back from meeting with Vince, you go give notice to Dusty and drop the belts that night to the Midnights. Is that right, Tully?
Well, that was the night before in Houston with what I said.
Okay.
And I didn't know that Arn was going to go with me.
The next morning, Tully, is when we got up. I called Darso. He called me back they put 2 plane tickets for us, and we got up that morning after flying in from Houston to Philly. We got up the next morning and flew up to Vince's. That was the time frame, and we met out by the pool. We did discuss money. He didn't promise us what we would make, but he asked what we make prior, and he said, "Oh, no problem. I'll certainly do better than that." Was one of the things he said. We flew back to Philly, went in that night when it was time to get there, and turned in our notice, and it was me supporting my partner. And there were so many things that had snowballed, everything from, if you go back to Houston that night, we had a dark match where the Midnight Express went out there for 20 minutes, tore the joint down. I come back through the curtain. Was it 2 or 3 minutes? Jimmy comes over and says, was it Jimmy? Somebody came over and said, "Hey, you got to work again. You were Steve Williams. 4 minutes, Williams over." So I called Jimmy in there. I said, what's going on? What am I being punished? Or he said, "Hey, I'm Arn. I'm just going with the flow here." And that was abuse to me. I think it shed on me. Not that I could beat Steve Williams. I couldn't beat Steve Williams with a flamethrower. That's not the question. It shed on the Midnight Express, and it shed on Tully and I that we had just went out and in a competitive match tore the joint down, and now you're just going to squash me, just like I'm a guy that showed up that works at Piggly Wiggly during the week, and that it all was snowballed into pay-per-view payoffs that never came to fruition. There were so many things that happened that just weren't right. And if you wrote them down on the paper and looked at them, reasons we left, if you took down everything, it wouldn't be hard to believe that those guys were getting the shaft. And, we all remember bits and pieces of things, but there was a lot of things that were very clear that happened right before we left.